So okay, now you have idea about this what you call the wave breaker. As you would see in this case, this is a wave breaker. Now, even this graphic shows that what you would notice in a wave breaker as it approach the the, the beach. It's all about the particle movements, the difference in the particle movements in the top particles versus bottom particles. Right? So now, if you look at this wave breaker a little bit further, we can recognize different types of breakers. Actually, there are basically three types of wave breakers, and they're called as spilling breaker, plunging breaker, and a surging breaker. If you don't remember the names, just forget about that. You just need to know the concept. At least now you know what is a breaker. Like in a spilling breaker would be something like this, right? You see the graphic here in the middle, and in the right, you will see what is usually a spilling breaker. And the second one is the plunging breaker. Right? As you can see, there's more rolling here. Right? Usually it's a huge waves, rolling. And these kind of waves are very popular among the surfers, right? Especially if you are an expert surfers, they prefer this kind of rolling waves. You might have seen in some videos, some people surfing in this kind of waves for like about 1 minute. It's that huge waves. Even in that condition, they can surf. It's really something adventurous. I don't think any of you would do it, but of course you can. And the third type is called the surging breaker, something like this. Looks very calm. Right. Now, what are these differences? What are these differences in breakers? Actually, so far we know that the waves are, I mean, the wave speed and all the wave height all depend on the wind speed and the fetch, something like that. But other than that, in this case, like for the breakers, it's very important something else. That is the shape of the bottom. I know the nature of the bottom, whether it is fully flat bottom or with some sort of a steep bottom, like a steep slope towards the sea, something like in the middle, or it's something very steep bottom, like if it is a huge slope in the beach. All these different types of breakers actually depend on the type of bottom. Right? If it is a flat bottom, you will get this kind of a spilling breaker, right? And you will see only like a spill over, like just a small spill of the top particles. But whereas in the second one, as you can see, is a curling or rollover. And the, the third one is there is no actually, not really, you're observing any break here. It's not a really observable break here. Now, the difference here again, if it is a flat bottom, you will get this kind of a breaker. And it is a steep slope, you will get this kind of a rolling situation where ideal for surfing, but whereas if it is steep slope fireplace, there won't be any the breaker. Right? So now something to remember, like when you just looking at if you go to the beach, unknown beach, if you see something like this on the bottom image, because there is no waves, there's no any rolling or wave breakers, one might think that this is very calm waters and it's not deep. You see, remember this very important. Right? Though they are looking very calm, you see, they can be very deep as you go in few steps, even few steps. that this can be very deep. So keep in mind, right? So the calm waters doesn't mean that they are not deep, right? So often some people get caught in this kind of a situation, uh, especially if you are not good swimmer in the sea. Even if you are not competent swimmer in the sea, in this kind of a situation, because once you put your feet, you will be putting us foot in like in a deep place, and then you will confused, and then that will make a lot of troubles, right? So keep that in mind as well, right? So now you have some idea about these waves, how they are formed, and what happened to them when they reach the beach or the ground when they ground, right? So as you can see, the wavelength is longer towards the offshore, but it become wavelength becomes smaller and smaller when they reach the beach. Now, what happens if you go the other way around? Like if the wind is in the other direction, from the land towards the offshore, then you will have something different. Like not very different. You will have the same side of kind of a waves, but you will notice that this the higher waves with the higher wavelength will they will be available in the offshore areas. So unless go in a ship or a boat, you won't experience this kind of a waves. But usually in the deep or offshore areas, we will have waves with a longer wavelength. Right? That's very typical. It's not like what you see in the beach, right? So that difference also there. Now, with that, let's talk a little bit further into now we know these different types of breakers, but even the waves can be a little different from one place to another, right? Especially if you are like someone going to the sea, you are a boatman, you are a fisherman, you are a seafarer, or if you are a naval person who go to the sea very often, then you need to be very knowledgeable about these terms that use in the mariners, especially like the whether the ocean is calm or rough seas, or it's general term. But some people call it like today the sea is more choppy. Right? Chop the chop waves are actually like a short period wave, right? Like small waves, but they are like a very short. Like this is very obvious. Like if you're going on a boat, you will notice that this choppy nature. Like a boat will go up and down very quickly, but there's no high waves. But in this case, we call it choppy. Today is a bit choppy, so it's not extremely bad. You can still go, but you can't go very fast because of this choppy. Like you are going on a uneven road, something like this. So the surface is a bit choppy. Now the second type of waves we call the swirl. Right? The wavelength is longer. Now in this case, it's not like choppy, but the boat start rolling, right? Going back and forth. So that is like it's not like a short like before, like it's not choppy, but it's a bit of rolling. And this is extremely bad for, especially if you are a new one who has not been to the sea much or never been to the sea. So that will cause a lot of issues for the people, something we call seasickness. I hope you have heard something called seasickness, right? Especially if you are not used to and the sea is not very good condition. Even with the good condition, some people, some people have something called the motion sickness. If you're going in a bus or car, easy to get some sickness. You feel you want to vomit or you feel dizzy. and you get headaches, something like that. So similar thing in the seasickness. This is very common first timers. I have a lot of experience in this kind of thing. We often go to the sea. No matter even you're like even an expert or you have been to the sea so many times, but still you will feel the seasickness. Depend on the sea condition. Uh, Especially for students. I mean, don't get afraid of this. I mean, it's something normal, but especially if you are in the sea for a long period of time. Like I remember once the students were going in a whale watching trip. It took about 6, 7 hours. You know, until you see a couple of whales, they have to keep on traveling. So it took 6, 7 hours. So like more than half of the students were fully flat. So even they couldn't move a bit at all. So this kind of a thing happens sometimes. But don't worry. With time, you will learn or you will get used to this kind of a thing, right? So chop and swell, something you need to know. A common terms that we'll use if you are going to the sea, right? And you already know what is swash and the backwash. Swash is the water coming to the sea, to the beach. If it is going back, we call the backwash, right? So that you already know. Now, in the next graphic, you will see like a different types of the wave. So far, we talk about the waves, but there are different types of waves. Um, um, if you put everything into a single diagram, this is how we would like capillary waves are the initial waves that you will see in the like earlier I mentioned, like small ripples in the surface because of the wind. These are called the capillary waves, very tiny waves. Sometimes even you won't notice. And then from that to chop wave that we discussed just before, and the swell. And you can see in the bottom is the wave period in seconds or hours, whereas the y-axis is the wavelength, so wave height. The chop wave to swell. So swell can be very high sometimes. There's another type of wave. It's called sesh wave. Right? It's like it's written in a sage, something like that, but it's called sesh wave. I think it's a French term. But anyway, you haven't heard about this one, and we never get sesh waves in Sri Lanka, but in some countries, they have something called sesh. I will tell what it is next. And the others are the tsunami waves. They are also type of waves, but their wavelength can be extremely longer, right? And wave period also long. As you can see here, and the other uh, type of wave is called the tide, which we also discuss later on. The tide is also a type of wave, right? You see, there are so many different types of waves, but we talk about this choppy waves or swell or wave breakers that usually we see in the coast, but there are many other different types of waves. So keep in mind that tsunami waves, even the tides, are also types of waves. Difference is that the wave period is different, the wavelength different, and the destruction may be very different from one to another as well, right? The impact from these waves may be also different, right? And from that, we come to this sesh wave, right? As I mentioned before, and it's so unique type of wave, and I haven't seen either. Most likely you haven't seen. It's like a sort of a square-shaped wave, as you can see in this image. Right? Usually you won't get these waves area. Commonly, these waves found in the lakes or some areas where two water bodies come together. Right? When two water bodies come together and just hitting one another, or when the wave is hitting somewhere between like in a landmarks, in that case you will have this kind. It's more or less square shape because the one wave coming in one direction and another wave coming in the other, they are hitting one another and forming this kind of pattern. It's a bit complicated thing, but this square waves can be really dangerous uh, from the experience that get from the people who caught in this kind of square wave. You see sometimes exactly square shape these waves. Someone in the middle, you see they are trapped because it's very hard to get out of this kind of a situation because it's like from the four corners you have these waves coming out of this is a bit difficult, right? So anyway, we don't have to worry a lot about that because it's not something common in Sri Lanka. Right? Let me share a small video with you.
Facts First presents Waves in the Ocean, Get Out of the Water Immediately. Help us spread the word about this very important message by clicking that like button and sharing this video with your friends and family. Also, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss our future videos. Most of our planet is covered by water. The oceans are so vast that much of the ocean has never even been explored. The oceans have gone so unexplored, scientists and other researchers are still discovering new species of sea life even today. Under the water, you can find shipwrecks and underwater graveyards for airplanes. There are some things about the ocean that we do know, other things that are still mysteries. The ocean around the Isle of Ré in France is very unique. What the ocean does at times can be amazing, but if you see square waves in the ocean, get out of the water immediately. Getting out of the water before the waves begin to form this pattern could save your life. The Isle is a popular tourist spot due to its blue oceans, sandy beaches, and the amazing lighthouses. The island is 3 miles wide, 19 miles long. What brings many of the tourists to the area is the pattern that the waves around the ocean makes. The waves are unlike any other. Most waves come in towards the shore in a horizontal fashion, and that's not the case with waves near this island. They actually create a chessboard-like pattern on the surface. If you look at the waves from above, it looks as though there is a metal grid underneath the water. The square waves are not a result of anything under the water. They're actually a result of the way that the water is moving. When you climb to the top of the lighthouse, you can get an amazing view of this. The reason why this occurs is due to the intersection of two seas located near the island. It's known as a cross sea. A certain weather pattern around the sea causes the waves to form this way. While the waves may look amazing, you do not want to be in the water when they form this shape. It's because the riptide is extremely powerful when this happens. The riptides that create this wave pattern are nothing like anything you've ever seen before. You don't hear about people being dragged out to sea in these riptides because the locals know how dangerous it can be to get in the water when the waves form this shape. The locals know enough to steer clear. Many of the tourists who have come to see the waves, they've heard about the dangers and they know enough to stay out of the water as well while the waves are behaving this way. There have been people who have gone out into the ocean when the waves created this, and fortunately they managed to get out of the water safely. One man was photographed swimming in the middle of one of the squares. What makes these chessboard waves so amazing is that this is the only place in the world where you can see this phenomenon. There are millions of small islands all over the world, none of them create waves like these. Fortunately, the waves in this area don't always flow this way. Most of the time, the waters are very safe. The cross sea occurs during certain types of weather, so the ocean can be safe for swimming most of the time. If you're planning to visit to enjoy this gorgeous beach, just make sure you check the weather forecast first. These waves are just another example of how amazing Mother Nature can be at times. Sure,
Right. Hope you got a idea about what is the sedge wave. Uh, though it is like it's only the place they have, but maybe in the ocean, but in some lakes. Even in your bathtub, sometimes you can see these kind of waves, but it's not something common. Um, anyway, it's something for you to read. Right. So again, there can be some waves which can be destructive waves as well as some can be constructive waves. Like it all depend on uh, that's about the swash as well as the backwash. If the backwash is stronger than the swash, then you will have something called a destructive wave because the wave is trying to form a large wave, but because of the the backwash, because a strong backwash that will neutralize the large wave, and this kind of situation you will have a destructive wave. You would see this kind of a situation, especially in the like in a steep slope, trying to form a large waves, but this backwash will stop that. But it's very important that this kind of place can be really dangerous as well because the backwash is very strong. In this situation, if you're trying to drag you to the deep waters, right? You will have this feeling when you're in a steep slope with water, to trying to drag you to the sea, right? So that's interesting, right? So that's a destructive wave. And then on the other hand, it can be the other way around, constructive wave. If the source is stronger than the backwash, in that case, you will have a different waveform, like it's called constructive waveform, right? So all these depend on the differences in the swash as well as the backwash, right? Uh, But again, all these depend on the shape of the bottom, right? Okay, from that, we will come to something very important again. Uh, that is called some sort of a scale to measure the sea situation. Right? By now, you know that there is the wind speed is there, the the sea state, like whether it's choppy or swell or it's very calm sea, there's no any waves, like that one we call the sea state. Right? What is the state of the sea today? And based on this wind speed and the sea state, as well as what kind of an impact that you will have if you are a boatman or if you are a seafarer or you are a mariner or even if you are in the coast, just touring in the beach, how would this situation will impact on you? Based on these features, actually, there is a scale. It's called Burford wind scale. Although it's called the wind, it's not really only about the wind, but wind speed. As you can see here, there is a scale from 0 to 12. Right? Then how many scales there? How many levels there? 0 to 12. It's not 12, right? There's 13 because there is a 0 as well. So 13 scale based on the wind speed, the wave height, and usual sea conditions also explained a bit. So this scale is very important to determine the situation of the sea. You can see that 0 is calm, extremely calm seas. That's theoretically the best calm condition that you can have. Like the sea wall surface will be almost stand still. Right? And locally we call Muda Gangavagi. Right? You will see sometimes like it's like a river. And river also not always like that, but like it can be very calm, no waves in that situation. Like and with the increasing wind speed, you will have different situations. Like in the wind speed, like below 1 knot, so it's not, it's usually the wind speed. This is 1 to 3. Then the scale is 1, right? With the former, it will be just flat sea, and this will be ripples, right, without crest. Now, this is just the ripples in the surface. There is no any crest formation. And in the scale 2, small wavelets, right? Then some crest, like just small, likewise, and it will increase as you go along up to a different level. Like the 12 is the maximum situation, the huge waves, usually it's like a storm situation. Right? So that's how usually the sea state based on the wind speed and everything is determined. Right? So there is a, if you search in the Google, you will see so many different versions of this for the wind scale. Um, Even with nice diagrams will show you the situation on the sea surface and how a boat will look like in that situation, like in from a 0, like in this case it's 1, like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, like the situation is explained here. So it is just for you to know about this, like when you listen to the weather reports next time. So think of these things. They might not talk about the Burford wind force usually, but they will talk about this kind of like the breeze to gale situation, like gale, then you'll have the storm to finally up to hurricane level, right? From gale, like a breeze to a gale, and then a storm, and a storm can be even a violent storm to even a hurricane level, right? So that's how it is increased, and the destruction or the impact on the humans or the anyone in the course will also determined by the scale, right? So that's the Beaufort scale. Let me show you a small video as well on this aspect.
It was in 1805 that British naval officer Francis Beaufort invented the scale that bears his name. Constantly refined, it classifies wind in 13 categories, linked to speed, sea conditions, and the visible impact on land. On weather maps, a symbol indicates its strength. Force 0 means a complete absence of wind, with levels rising up the scale as the breeze develops. From force 5, the wind causes waves. On land, trees begin to sway. At force 6, the whistling of the wind can be audible. When it reaches force 8, small branches break off trees and waves on the ocean start to break. At force 10, the wind becomes a storm, causing significant damage on land. The storm becomes violent once it hits force 11, causing waves more than 11 meters high. When gusts reach 118 kilometers per hour, the wind speed hits force 12. It's at this point the weather system becomes a cyclone or hurricane. Winds of this strength devastate everything in their path.
Right. So that's about the Beaufort scale. You see, the oceanography sometimes can be very fascinating. The most of the thing that we discuss is something related to our day-to-day life as well. I mean, all depend on where you are and what you are doing. But I mean, when you listen to your weather forecast next time, at least think of these things, what they are talking about. And did you hear something called a gust? They're talking about the wind gust. That also quite often you hear when you're talking about the weather. Right? The wind, it's like just like a wind can be flowing, but sometimes call it gust situation. Gust is like increasing of a speed of a wind, but it's for a short period of time. Right? You might have noticed like just before rain, sometimes you will see like a sudden increase in the wind speed, but it's a for very brief time, like usually less than 20 seconds, and it will wait for another 2 minutes or something, and you will get another wind gust. Like this is called the wind gust. It's increasing speed for a short period of time. But sometimes you will see a wind, but flowing for a long period of time. That's not the gust. It's normal wind. It's normal wind blowing, but it's gust is something different, right? So, okay. So with that, we'll conclude about the our discussion on the waves, right? Um, I hope you got some idea about a wave. Right? Of course, there are so many things to learn about the wave, but at this level, especially in your level, this is more than enough. I mean, at least next time when you go to the beach, actually you will try to realize a lot of things that we discuss in this the lecture, right?